When I use AI now, I have a second brain that I didn't know I could have and save time. Working smarter, not harder.
Welcome to Live Chat with Jen Weaver. I'm Jen, and today I'm joined by Meg Palazzolo, a customer success leader with 15 years of experience building and scaling customer-facing teams. Currently at a stealth mode startup, Meg is leveraging AI to streamline processes and manage the many hats she wears at an early stage company. She'll share how she used Claude to help create a user journey map and why collaboration and community are vital for success. Let's dive in. I'm super excited to have you on the podcast. We start every episode with a joke. Do you have a joke queued up at the ready for me?
I do. Why do skeletons not like getting into fights?
Why do skeletons not like getting into fights?
Because they don't have guts.
Oh, nice. Okay, so we're here to talk about a process that you implemented recently and the tools you used to do that. Really, everything somebody would need to know to do that themselves.
So let's talk about AI. I think that is definitely a hot topic these days. We're seeing it all over. OpenAI just came out with a pro version today that's $200 a user per month. I'm just like, wow, that's wild. I know. It's just, we're on this new path of using AI to help us be more productive in our day-to-day, help our customer experience get better, you name it. I've even seen marketing tools for AI. So it's touching every aspect of every business. And so when I think about processes and I think about where I'm at in my career journey, I'm back to building the 0 to 1 all over again. And there's lots of problems that pop up and there's lots of different hats to wear, hats that I may not be an expert in or hats that I have never worn before, and building these processes from scratch. Now I am turning to AI on a daily basis versus Googling things. I think like a lot of times, like having to Google stuff, you wouldn't always find the right information that you were looking for, or you would find like bits and pieces. And now using something like Claude, Anthropic, or ChatGPT, having that in my back pocket and just pulling it up on a browser and asking it like I would ask a friend, can you help me work on XYZ? Or can you help me with a social media content strategy? I don't have any experience doing this. Can you help me with this? Normally, I would go about a process like researching in Google and finding a few different pages. But now I'm just having this conversation with this AI and it's producing results for me. And I'm able to fine tune those results over and over until we get to a spot where I'm just like, yes, this is what I can use, or this is what I need. And I am going to either send this to our CEO and have him provide some edits and feedback now, or actually use it. So it's everything from like developing the strategy to developing the actual content that we're using to developing our content style guides. It's really touching multiple aspects of our whole overall strategy, which is really awesome. So yeah, to answer your question, for when I use AI now, it's at multiple stages throughout the process to overall just help me have a second brain that I didn't know I could have, and help me be more productive and save time. Working smarter, not harder.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So you are in customer success. You oversee the customer journey, right, for your team.
Yep.
And so that includes the marketing, reaching out to them in the first place, even though that's not typically what a CSM would necessarily do.
Right.
But as a small team, you wear many hats. You have your hands in many different areas. And so AI is helping you to do things that you've never done before, essentially.
Yep. Yeah. And like for earlier stage startups, I think you bring on these generalists in the beginning, right? Like you might not need a head of marketing just yet or head of growth just yet. You build the foundation the best you can, you bring in some tools, and then you eventually pass it off once you start scaling. And that's the phase that we're in right now. I'm doing a lot of product stuff and product feedback that supports the overall customer experience, or the holistic customer view, if you will. But eventually as we start getting customers and I have less time on my hands, then we start bringing on more people who are subject matter experts in this space for sure. But yeah, right now it's doing lots of different things.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know about you. That's what I enjoy most about working at small companies and startups. And you've done this before. You've worked at a startup before, right?
Yes,
And
this is my
yeah,
fifth one, believe it or
wow,
not.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what's different now about startup life than in the past?
I think what's different is I grew so much both as a person individually and a professional in that short amount of time and grew my overall understanding of what it looks like to scale at hyper speed, how to hire the right people and how to be more efficient in my day to day, what tools to lean on. Last year was really when AI started to come out, and we were using Ada's scripted version, and it was an awful experience. But once AI came out, the generative AI, it's a game changer for what customers experience and for productivity internally and just how teams can scale fast.
That's fantastic. And so the big heart of this podcast is representing processes that somebody could then replicate. So if
Mhm.
you could walk me through from the conception of your idea about the marketing strategy or any other process that you want to talk
Yeah.
about and how that landed on your desk through how you decided to take next steps and which tools you used.
Yeah. I think just going back to basics, one of the first things that you do as a leader in a customer facing team is understand what the customer journey looks like and visualize that both from an operational standpoint and understanding cross functionally how are other teams going to be interacting with this as well. So one of the things that I did on day one was build out a customer journey and knowing how our product would be functioning, what were the tools that I would need to implement over the next month in order to make this experience streamlined and amazing from end to end, or as best as it could be for a V1. I used AI knowing what tools I was already going to be thinking about using to a certain degree. I gave the AI my word vomit of what the process should look like in words. And I asked it, I was like, hey, I need you to create a visual customer journey map with breaking up the different tools that we'll be using, and this is what the journey looks like, and this is how they'll be interacting with each different tool. And it produced this image that was really good. It was a really good start. It would have taken me a lot longer than the 15 minutes that this whole conversation wrapped up in. So it produced this image and it still needed some tweaks. So I went and I was like, okay, this is great, but it's missing XYZ in the journey. And I forgot about this one touch point. And so it iterated on what I had produced before. Right. And so just going back and forth with the AI and producing this great journey that again would have taken me a few hours, maybe, I don't know, much longer than the 15 minutes that I actually spent on it. So it's great.
Yeah. So it didn't get it right the first time, though.
Didn't
Like,
get right the first time, but I think what's important as I go through and continue to get used to like how AI thinks, if you will, or generates information, you have to be very descriptive. You have to talk to the AI like you would be instructing your 85-year-old grandmother how to use a computer without pointing. So you're using all these verbal cues of, okay, take your mouse and click on the apple in the left-hand corner. I worked at Apple for 5 years way back in the day, and we had to literally have our hands behind our back and instruct people how to use it. So I channel that moment in my career when I'm talking to the AI around what I'm needing it to produce. And when it doesn't produce what I want, I go back and see, okay, where did I miss or what did I miss? And like, how can I reword this and be more specific?
yeah. So after it generated that great, but not quite right image, you went back in and said, change XYZ, and then it popped up another one.
It would pop up another one. Yep, another version.
And so then you got to the point where you were happy with it. Then I'm assuming, were able to export it and use it in some way internally with your team.
Yeah, so I am not an engineer and I can't connect all the tools. Having this visual representation of what our customer journey looks like is really helpful for other teams involved in integrating those tools into our overall platform and ecosystem. So I passed it over to our product team and said, "Hey, like this is how I'm envisioning the operational or customer support, customer success tools to operate." Now they have a sense of what's happening. Pass it over to our engineering team. "Hey, I need you guys to so kindly connect these tools, please." And now instead of having them going back and forth, a lot of times in the past I would have engineers like, "Okay, this is great, but like now what? Or what am I supposed to do? How do you want it to actually function?" You really have to spell things out for the engineers because they don't like to interpret things, or there can be that misinterpretation, right? So now our engineer team is, "Oh, this is perfect. I know exactly what to do." And they know exactly how to connect it. So saves a lot of time all around.
Was there anything in particular that you did to target this customer journey map to an engineering audience?
I wouldn't say necessarily. No, what it produces, what a typical customer journey would look like if you're showing that there's tools on the journey as well. So I can walk folks through what it looked like. So I had 5 different tools. I had Calendly, Intercom, I had the actual customer journey, HubSpot, and Notarize.com. I had those different tools in there and the customer journey. And you basically just weave it through each one. So when there's a different touch point, it's hitting the Intercom one, and then it goes down to HubSpot to hit another touch point.
Okay, so you knew that this would be foundational to your work. You needed to know what the customer journey was and have it super clear. You also knew you needed to communicate it to engineering so they could set some things up. You worked with Claude to do that and linked sort of all your tools with where customers would interact with those in this map, which is amazing. Yep. And so now you'll need to probably store that somewhere. Will you also be able to go back to Claude and iterate on that if you need to make changes?
Yeah. So the great thing about having AI is that or using something like Claude or ChatGPT is that on the left-hand side, you have all of your files. You can delete them if you want, or you can visit them and iterate on them. Here's actually a fun example. I use ChatGPT to create all of my workout plans.
Really?
Yeah. And I've used it for like the past 8-9 months. And it's the same thread, and I'll be like, "Great, I need another 8-week program." And so it will program, and there might be something that I don't like in there, and I'll
I
be
don't
like,
want to do burpees or
I don't want to do burpees ever. Who does?
Oh.
But it can take it out and stuff. So yes, to answer your question, you can go back and continue the conversation right where you picked off, even if it's like several months down the road.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'm sure as you launch, you'll have some thoughts about, oh, this is actually going to be different, or we'll use this other tool or whatever. And
Right.
so you'll be able to change that. And then are there tools you're using internally to communicate this or just store the information in your knowledge base?
We're currently using Notion as our internal knowledge base. I just took a screenshot of it and then wrote up a little thing in Notion, a document around, "Hey, this is how we're thinking about our customer journey from the customer success ops side. And here's how like this will impact other teams," type of thing. And so we can actually use that to reference later down the road too.
And what just occurred to me as you were talking about that is that there was probably a step 0 that you and I, as people who work in a startup, don't even really think about, but that's the journey you took to absorb all this information from your founders and your executives and other people on the team. You came on and learned about this tool that doesn't exist yet. That's a whole skill set and a whole journey in itself.
Yeah. So the platform that we are creating, there haven't been any tools. So I was the first hire. Myself and our engineer, we were both brought on the same day. And we're literally building the car, if you will. And we're hand selecting like which tools to use for what. And I think there can be analysis paralysis when it comes to selecting tools. And when you have a tight deadline, like we're launching literally in 6 weeks total from start to finish. When you are going through that process and you're deciding like what tools to pick, you just have to pick them at the end of the day. Like I've used a lot of these tools in the past. When I was choosing like a help desk, I was considering a few others, but Intercom is great. And talking about their AI, I know they're using Fin, which is built off of Anthropic, and it's really good. I've heard like great things about it. So I have leveraged a few different communities, support driven. Shout out to support driven. There's also Elevate, which is another great support community, just super helpful and wonderful people. But I leveraged those two communities of just like asking folks, like, hey, what are your thoughts on this tool? What are your thoughts on that tool? And just making the decision quickly once I gathered some information from other people and just using those tools to support the overall customer journey.
That's fantastic. I have really enjoyed just learning from you person to person, and I really appreciate your time. Is there anything else you'd like to share about that process or just anything for customer
I would
leaders?
just encourage folks to not be afraid of really using it on a daily basis. I think I've talked to some former direct reports recently from my previous company. I was like, are you using any AI for this? Like, this could really help you out. It's a new way of being productive. And I think we hear the term working smarter, not harder. And there's so many AI tools out there. It can be overwhelming, but just start with ChatGPT. It's easy. It's free to use. So yeah, don't be scared to use them. And I don't know, join a community. Please join in a community. Support Driven is free. Elevate is also free. And ask others how they're using AI as well.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Live Chat with Jen Weaver. A big thank you to Meg Palazzolo for sharing her insights on leveraging AI and navigating the challenges of startup life. Our goal with each and every episode is to empower you with a new process that you can duplicate in your own work. So I hope, like me, you now have a new AI assistant. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It really helps us reach more listeners like you. And as always, let's keep the conversation going. Maybe you recently did a thing and you want to share, or maybe you'd like me to find an expert for a puzzle that has you stuck. Connect with me, Jen Weaver, on LinkedIn to reach out. And don't forget to connect with the amazing communities Meg mentioned, like Support Driven and Elevate. You'll find all those links in the show notes. Until next time, keep creating exceptional experiences for your customers.